Hi guys, you're welcome to the Lore Studios. This is another episode of Android programming. We'll be talking about the Android loader, which was introduced in the Android 3.0, which is the API 11, and it basically helps to load data into your activity or your fragments, either from a content provider or any other data source. What are the advantages of using the Android loader? Number one, it runs on a separate thread, which doesn't block the UI thread. And it also have a thread management system, whereby it has a callback and gets data back. It catches data, whereby you don't have to query over and over and over again the SQLite database. We're actually going to be using a snippet, whereby we have a content provider created, and we want to build more on this project. Whereby we're going to create a loader that actually loads data from the content provider down to the UI of the application. I'll be moving straight to Android Studio, where I have the source file, and I will implore us to follow me along, whereby we're going to actually create a loader that actually loads data from the content provider and is actually going to populate it using the adapter to actually graze up the UI. So follow me along in this tutorial. Right then in Android Studio, populating your UI with the loader is so much easy when you have your content provider set up. We've actually set up a content provider called the menu provider, and we implore you, if you're new to content provider, please, I would like you to lay your hands on this video, and you're actually going to understand how to create a provider, which sits on top your SQLite database. And if you have been around there and you actually understand how to create a provider, that's cool. You can move on to actually understand how to use a loader to call data from your content provider. And if you also know all this is like a refresher for you to actually refresh the knowledge on how to use a loader in your activity or fragments. We have a content provider created called menu provider that has an authority and also the root entries and entries ID, whereby we actually have the cursor query, the get type to actually get the type of entry we are in question. We have the simple CRUD, the create, read, update, and delete methods flowing around, whereby we have the insert, the delete, and we also have the updates. So we have that set up and it's actually running and it's cool. From here, we are building more of this to actually have a cursor loader to call data from this content provider and use the adapter to visualize the data in question. So before I move straight to the loader, we'll actually talk about the layout that we use to actually make this work. Because without the layout, I wonder how you're going to actually display data successfully. In the activity main, we actually introduced the Recyclerview. The Recyclerview with an ID of Recyclerview. However, we gave a layout with an ID, so that we're going to have a kind of structured layout. And the scroll bars, we made it vertical, and we call the list item to call the layout menu item. In any Recyclerview or list view, there must always be a corresponding list item. These list items serve as like a prototype for you to now bind data on. In this context, the list item is the menu item, which is a card view. It has a parent tag of card, and whereby we have different views for the image view, which actually signify the image if we have anyone. We have the text view, which is for the item name, and we have another text view for the price, we have for the category, and we have for the last but not the least the description, which are all wrapped around a relative layout. So they will be relative to each other, not a linear layout. And the closing parent tag called the card view. This serves as the menu item, and this serves as the prototype for each row. Back to the activity main, and we use the list item to actually bring that into the Recyclerview. So that's why you could see something of this nature. Let me expand it so that you can see it clearly. Cool. From here, I'll be heading straight to the main activity where we actually use our loader. First of all, we declared some fields called the Recyclerview, and we created a class called the adapter, and we called it menu list adapter. Very important. We gave it an object called adapter, and we also have a projection. In this projection, what's the projection? A projection simply means, in this context, simply means all columns that you use in your table. We have up to 6 columns we used, whereby we have the ID, which is the identifier, which is the primary key, and it's actually increment auto. It has an auto increment, and we have the column name, the description, price, category, and photo. These are other columns right there in the table. We pass that into a string array called projection. We'll be using it in the course of the query. We try to bind the ID of the Recyclerview so that we're actually going to get this ID right there from the layout activity main, which we've just talked about, the Recyclerview. We assign an ID to it. Likewise, the adapter, we instantiate the adapter with the menu list adapter. I will show you the adapter after explaining the loader. You have to set the adapter to the Recyclerview and passing this adapter with object we created as a parameter. And you set the layout manager. In Recyclerview, we have different layout manager. We have the linear layout manager. We have the grid layout manager, and we have the staggered grid, which you can opt for anyone. Which we went for the linear layout manager, which actually comes in rows. This part, this get support loader, is actually initiating, or it's actually triggering the cursor loader, the loader. We'll get to talk about that later on. If you should notice, we implement the loader manager callbacks. Very important if you are using a loader right there inside your activity or fragment. You need to implement this class. Once you implement this, you're going to have a kind of error line showing that you need to implement or override some methods. You can easily click on your bulb icon, which will sit somewhere over here. You click on your bulb icon and you click on the implement methods. Once you click on that, you're going to have 3 methods populated automatic for you, and this will be the onCreate loader, onLoad finish, and onLoader reset. As the name implies, when you're calling your loader, when the loader has been run and it's finished, and when you're trying to reset the loader for another creation. That's just it. In the first one, which is the onCreate loader, we're definitely just going to query the DB using the content provider. We are not querying directly. We're using the content provider. Whereby we create a string called query URI, and what's going to be saved in this string. We call the DB contract, whereby we have that right there in the data subpackage. We call the menu entry, and we call the content URI. Let's get to look at it again. Probably we've forgotten. The content URI over here. This is when we call the base content URI, and we build upon it, and we append the path, which is the path entries, which is the path to your table. That forms the content URI back to the main activity. And we convert this to string, and we save this right there inside the query URI, which is a string data type. Cool. We need to return an instantiated cursor loader where we pass this as a parameter if you are using a fragment context. And we need to pass this query URI. We need to make it readable to the system. That's why we pass the query URI. And the projection is the third parameter. What's the projection? We've talked about it. That's the columns involved. And you will notice we just have 3 nulls. Most people are always confused with this, or they don't understand what the nulls are. The first null simply means a where clause. Where probably you have you're creating your query this way. You want to select all from a table where a table name, that's just what it means. Where a table name, probably we are saying where the column name will be the where clause. Where the column name and the second null will be the argument you're passing as the value of the column name. Probably where the column name is Pepe. So I want you to return all that value. So you need to modify the null. It won't be null when you're doing that. You're passing the column name and you're passing the arguments you are trying to return. And the last one is the sort order. How are you returning them? How are you sorting them while returning? Probably you want to sort based on the description, or you want to sort based on the category. You can also use an ascending or descending. That depends on how you really want to return your data. So that says it all for the create loader. But in this context, I'm just calling all data from the database using the content provider. On load finished, when you finished loading, please set the data to the adapter. Most times this is just a naming convention. Sometimes you see swap cursor. You swap cursor, where you set data. They are all doing the same thing. Based on this data, sometimes this should be cursor, is just mean an object of the cursor. We may name it data and we pass it to an adapter. This is also very important on load finish. And on loader reset, what are you going to do? Still the same swap cursor or set data, you are passing null parameter into this to the adapter. Now adapter will be triggered. Adapter will be signified with data. So adapter is not going to get a null value. So you have to take cognizance of that. You must not get a return type. Most times an error that comes using cursor is always a null value. And at this point in time, your adapter is not going to get a null value, and your adapter will be triggered with values. So let's get to look at the menu list adapter, and let's see how we've been able to call the cursor data and how we are able to bind those data to the views. Right there in the menu list adapter. This extends the Recyclerview adapter. Since we are using a Recyclerview, cool. And we also have the menu list adapter calling the menu order class. Let's get to look at this class. Firstly, this extends the Recyclerview adapter and implements the onClick listener. This is where you can have an onClick triggered on the list with this class. And in this class, we declare the fields needed. We actually need the menu name, the menu price, the category, the description. We declare the fields. They are all in text view. That's why you have it in a straight line, as you're seeing. And the image view, probably if you want to, in future, we added images. Your code will be able to undo image. That's why we added that. And we have the constructor for this. I've actually explained this particular aspect of code times without number in most of my tutorial. If you've been following the channel, you're going to have this quite easy, but still, this is so simple. I'll explain all this. Now we initialize the fields to the appropriate IDs. We'll bind them down together, the price, the category, and the description. On this aspect, you can create an onClick listener to each of the views. That's each of the row that you have right there in the Recyclerview, whereby you override the onClick. And in this point in time, you can pass an intent to another activity or another fragment to probably a detail page, but this is not in this context. That's not what we are really looking at. So I actually stop there. You can extend more on this, or you can decide to use the onClick over here to achieve the same thing. Our focus is the cursor. We created the cursor and we initialize it to null. We also have the context. Context is different from cursor. And we have a layout inflator that we actually declared as well. In the list adapter, the menu list adapter, we pass in the context as a parameter. We only took the context, and we initialize the inflator. In this time, we call it from the context. So we are like inflating a kind of the page right there, still in activity, because it's just one activity we are still using right there. The same thing goes for the context. Now let's look at the set data. Sometimes this is called swap cursor. We pass in the cursor as a parameter. We are taking the cursor as a parameter, and from the cursor we created from the field, we are like correlating or passing the value we get here as a value we have at the field over here, and we notify data set change. Probably we want a different cursor. When you swap cursor, you can decide to change your cursor, or probably you make another query and you change it. From there, the adapter is going to populate a different UI based on the cursor that has been passed in. That's what that set data is doing. We call this swap cursor as well. And we have the menu order what we call the uncreate view order. This time we inflate the menu item. We need an item. We need the menu items to actually bind data. So that's why we inflate that. And on bind view order, now we are about binding data. We have two parameters, the order and the position of each of those items. It's a good convention to first of all check if your cursor is not returning a null value. If cursor is not equals to null, at this point you move to the position, that's move to the first position, which is the first index. And in this point in time, you get the index of each of your columns, the column name, the price, the category, and the description. That's why we are getting that based on the cursor you are having, based on the value you're having. You get column index for the name, for the price, the category, and the description. You pass them into a variable, an integer variable called of this, which I've been trying to highlight right there that you're seeing, the menu description. Cool. The second aspect is to now get the real value from the index. The index is just like the identifier. Now we need to get the value from particular index so that it's not going to be clumsy up. That's the essence. Now we are getting the string from the menu name, which is the first index for the name. The same thing goes for the price. The same thing goes for the category. And the same thing goes for the description, still using the cursor objects. We need a cursor to be extracting. In short, we are extracting the appropriate data. And we are saving them right into its corresponding string value, which is like a variable to hold onto them. And here we have the menu, price, category, and description. Cool. Now we need to set those string values using the order to its appropriate view. We call the menu name, which we actually created up here. Those text view we created, now we need to call them because we need to bind data to them. We set text and pass in the menu name over here as this parameter. So we've actually bind data to that. The same thing goes for the price, menu price, category, and description. Cool. So I use the log tag just to be sure if we're on point, and if we are having a null value for our cursor, we get that from the log. Viewers will not even see that. This is just for the purpose. You see that right there in the console. So that says it all. That ends the unbind view order of this menu list adapter. Looking at the get item card is just the normal item card. We just want to know the size of the cursor, how many items were returned right there in the cursor. That's what this method is, and it's very important. You need to override the get item counts before you even have your application set. We have the cursor that actually tests if it's not null, and it returns the count. You count the different snippet, the different data right there in the cursor. So we have that returned, and else it returns a -1. Cool. We have that set up. So with this structure, you have your menu list adapter set up, and you can actually populate data. You can visualize this from the UI. I'll be showing you a screencast of this analysis, whereby you get to see how data has been called quickly. They're called in fleets of seconds. You have that. You have your UI populator with data with the help of the cursor loader that runs in the background that doesn't block the UI thread. So fast, so reliable. Use the loader to load data from your content provider or from any other data source. That ends the tutorial for today. We'll be bringing other bumper package right there when it comes to Android development, and I will implore you to leave comments below if you have any query or any question that it's not clear to you that you really want to push out there for me to answer, and I will be there to answer almost everything. And I will also implore you to please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that. Most of my viewers are out there, but they just don't subscribe to my channel. I will implore you, please subscribe to my channel. This is a form of encouragement to give me the ability, or to give me the motivation to do more. So thank you guys for hanging out with me throughout this tutorial, and One assignment for you. I would like you to extend more on this. Create a detail page right there in the menu list adapter over here. That's just the assignment I have for you. Populate the on-click list now. Let it go to a detail page. Let's have the detail page of each menu. That will be cool. That's going to finish up the application. Thank you guys, and catch me up in my next tutorial.